we're back after a week off to kick off the 2021 PGA Tour season. This week we got the Fortinet Championship and a good amount of Draftkings contests to try and take down as well. Our picks from last week were average, I'd say. Not great, not bad by any means. We had Jon Rahm as our pick to win. Obviously wasn't able to completely take that down, but ended up taking down the raw strokes leaderboard along with Kevin Na. So ended up being an optimal play on DraftKings. Can't really complain about that there. We had Rory McIlroy and Victor Hovland, who were very solid plays throughout the week as well in our core plays, and even Daniel Berger made a run at it on Sunday. Ended up in the optimal lineup. I don't think many people expected that after his round one performance, and Billy Horschel also comes to mind as one of our better value plays. Ended up finishing in that top 7 there. Was also an optimal play on the slate, so had some highlights there. Obviously, one of the lowlights is that we missed out on the career performance from Kevin Na. Kevin Na ended up tying for the raw strokes leaderboard this week. Was a very much so optimal play, and if we had him in our lineups, probably would have taken down a GPP or two, but obviously we can't get every sleeper pick right, and we'll look to do better this time around. Our picks this week are going to be data-based as they always are, especially for the PGA Tour, and they're going to be based heavily around my key stats for the week. So if you haven't seen my full breakdown this week for Silverado Resort and Spa, make sure to do so. I'm going to have a link in the description of this video so you can make sure to check that out. We're also going to be doing a live stream this Wednesday at 7 p.m. We're going to be going through my final player pool for the week, as well as some live Q&A, some strategy talk, some lineup building as well. So make sure to stop by, again, Wednesday at 7 p.m. I'm also going to have a link in the description so you can go ahead and set a notification for that. Without further delay, though, let's hop into my top 6 picks for the Fortinet Championship. And now getting into our golfers to target, all these stats are going to be calculated since June 1st. Again, we got to give enough sample size to the guys that didn't make the playoffs, and those that did so, we got a little bit more data in here, and it's not going to hurt anything. In terms of our spend-up option, I'm starting off with Jon Rahm, going right back to the well there. He's $12,100 this week, which is far from optimal, the most expensive player on the entire slate, but it's well warranted given his plus 300 price tag to take down the event. Over his last 23 measured rounds, he's been nothing short of spectacular, gaining a whopping 0.92 shots gained approach per round, also gaining 1.11 shots gained off the tee. All that adds up to over 3.38 shots gained total per round, by far number one in the world. I mean, essentially averaging a tour win over that stretch. And the only two knocks I can find on Rahm, and I had to search pretty deep to find these, is first of all his putting on the bent POA surface. He's slightly lost strokes when compared to other surfaces there. It's not glaring by any means, but a lot of the narrative behind Rahm is that he's great on West Coast golf courses. Again, a lot of them have this bent POA hybrid, and for him to lack a little bit of the stats on it is a slightly concerning trend. I also don't like that he's the number 99th ranked player in the world from the 125 to 150 yard range. That is the wedge range for somebody like Jon Rahm. It shows a little bit of a lack of touch. Obviously, with the long irons, with the mid irons, the best player in the entire world is Jon Rahm. That's why you see those glaring 1.11 shots gained off the tee numbers and 0.92 shots gained approach numbers per round. But at the same time, maybe he lacks a little bit of touch. And here at Silverado, you have a ton of shots in that range. So these concerns are valid, but they're not enough to keep me off the world's number one ranked player in a substandard field. So definitely going to him. He's worth the price tag. I definitely recommend you do so as well. But for our second man in, we have Cameron Tringale, someone who's not coming in with quite the heater form as somebody like Jon Rahm. But at $9,700, you get a relatively good price tag for Tringale. And he is somebody who had an absolutely stellar 2020 campaign. Somebody who didn't have a win, scared it a couple times, especially there at the Charles Schwab, but ended with a little bit of crash and burn at the Northern Trust and BMW. He had built up quite a few FedEx Cup points, was well within the top 25 come the playoffs, but ended up playing himself out of that. At the Northern Trust, hit the ball in the water far too many times. At the BMW, really couldn't do anything. So as a result, I expect him to come in relatively overlooked this week. A lot of people aren't going to go to somebody, especially at $9,700 coming in with this kind of form. But Cameron Tringale is a California guy, somebody who always plays his best golf out here on the West Coast. And perhaps it's because he putts the best on this bent POA surface. So if we take a look at a deep dive into his putting on it, per his career, he's a solid 0.18 shots gained better per round on the bent POA hybrid. That is very drastic. Typically we're used to seeing splits of like 0.04, 0.05 shots gained per round. But once you get above that 0.1 shots gained per round number, it's a significant number. You're going to see a shot or two per tournament difference over those 4 rounds. And in terms of his recent form, again, I think it's a little bit let's say, I don't know, it throws you off a little bit, right? It's not so straightforward. The numbers of the Northern Trust and BMW really skew them towards the negative. But even including those two tournaments where he really wasn't himself, he's still gaining in every category but off the tee. Very solid on approach, gaining 0.33 shots gained per round. Around the green, he's decent as well, gaining nearly a fifth of a stroke per round around the green. But very solid putting. This is really where he's made his hay of late, even despite the mediocre play, gaining 0.63 shots gained putting per round. Again, he's even better on this bent POA surface, so we could see him gain a stroke per round putting. And the best part about Silverado here is that it's one of the shortest golf courses on tour. It's also completely wide open. So for somebody like Tringale that has his struggles off the tee, again, we saw that at the Northern Trust. We also saw it at the BMW Championship as well. It's going to get covered up this week. At Silverado, it's a resort course. It's made for the average everyday golfer. You can essentially fit an aircraft carrier on these fairways. That's what I mentioned during my course preview there. And there's a lot of truth to that. They're that wide. So for Tringale, I expect him to get a little bit of a boost with those wide fairways. And the icing on the cake for Tringale, again, is going to be the ownership. Like I mentioned before, going to go extremely underowned. People are going to be scared by that recent form. But in reality, over there at Caves Valley, it wasn't a very good course fit. Same thing with Liberty National. But over here at Silverado, essentially fit to a tee for Tringale. So I expect a huge bounce back. And that's why he's my second man in for this week. Before we get into my bread and butter play here, just wanted to do a quick plug of my Patreon page. If you're looking for my opinions on every golfer in this week's field, all 156, then look no further than my Patreon page. On there, and it's only $1 for the entire month, you get access to all 4 events this month. You get access to projections for all players in the field. That is all 156, even the guys that you may have never heard of before. I do deep dives on them. I get the Korn Ferry Tour stats to make sure that we can do some proper modeling and get you guys the best plays on the slate. So check it out there. We don't just have projections for every player. We also have ownership rankings, their custom model rankings, essentially how well they fit golf courses. You also get access to my Discord server where you can ask me any questions at any point. Also interact with the rest of the GS Loot community. So it's just $1. Again, you get access for all the players in every field, for every event, and every month. So definitely a great value there. Link will be in the description for that, so make sure to join. Now to our bread and butter play, we have Max Homa at $8,700. I think he should be priced in that mid 9K range. It's just not the strongest field. So as a result, you have some built-in value in terms of his salary there with Max Homa. He's also somebody who also plays his best golf on the West Coast. So just like Cameron Tringale, somebody who on the bent POA hybrid surface really takes his game to another level. So we've seen that familiarity play out in the putting stats where he's significantly better on the surface. And he's a solid 0.34 shots gained better per round on the bent POA surface. That is glaring. That is one of the biggest splits that we see in this entire field. And of late, he's been really solid, especially with his ball striking. So gaining a 0.21 shots gained off the tee per round, which is very typical for Max Homa. Definitely not elite off the tee, but has more than enough to get the job done. Where he's made his hay, though, has been with the approach play, gaining 0.35 shots gained approach per round. That's solid. That's top 20 in the field. And while he hasn't been his best with the short game of late, we've seen him lose strokes around the green and putting. The cure could very well be this West Coast grass. It tends to putt his best here, actually gain strokes putting here where he loses on all other surfaces. Also tends to do better around the green. We don't have any specific grass surfaces for around the green play. I think we should. That's something that I may look into creating here over the next few months or something like that, because depending on the type of strain of grass, it's much easier to chip on them than others. In Georgia grass, it's almost like the ball's teed up. You can apply spin to almost everything. So guys that are using the leading edge a little bit less are going to do great on zoysia grass. Whereas with Bermuda, if you try to use the leading edge, it gets caught. Guys that are typically relying on that tend to do worse. So something I'll look into including at some point with my analysis. But for Max Homa, he has all the good vibes. Very, very familiar with that bent POA surface. Grew up on it. Also has that very nice win last year at Riviera. So has some good vibes coming into this golf tournament. And again, I don't expect his ownership to be very high, even though he is a very good play in terms of salary, just because of the recent form. At the BMW Championship, at the Northern Trust, didn't really look his best. So I expect him to be a sneaky GPP play at the very least. And now for our value play, we have Patton Kizzire. He's only $7,500, which I absolutely love. And you really couldn't make a better track for Kizzire than Silverado. So he's an absolute birdie or better machine, very aggressive. He ranks top 5 in the field since June 1st in birdie or better percentage. And that's the exact kind of skill set that's going to serve him well at a resort course, where volatility is what you're looking for. It's a very straightforward design. They're not trying to trick you anywhere or anything like that. The reason Patton isn't a play every single week, week in and week out, is the negative side of that volatility. Because he is so aggressive, he's going to put himself in some really bad situations. But luckily for Patton, we have this resort course style where essentially all the hazards are meant to be easy to hit out of. There's not a shot on this golf course that it's meant to be hard to hit. Again, you're dealing with everyday golfers that play this every day. It's not meant for a PGA Tour event. This isn't going to be a stop over here at Silverado for an extended period of time or anything like that. So as a result, I really like Patton this week. He's not really going to get himself in that trouble that he usually does. In terms of his putting, he's definitely a machine on the Bermuda surface. One of the best putters in the world on Bermuda, but ranks number 2 in shots gained on the bent POA surface. So his second favorite is this surface, which is great to see. He's not a specialist by any means, but he's 0.25 shots gained putting better per round on it. So like to see that. So overall, I think he's a great pick. The salary is very good at $7,500, but has the birdie or better upside that you're looking for. Is one of the best, if not the best, point per dollar plays on the entire slate. For our diamond in the rough, we have Luke List, who is a very similar player to Patton Kizzire. They model very similarly, relatively long off the tee, can kind of pop with their irons. Usually not the best putter with Luke List, but when it comes around, watch out. So he's $7,100. Also has a very good course fit here with Silverado. Like I mentioned, very long off the tee, very streaky with the putter and with the irons. And he fits a very similar mold to our 2019 champion here at the Safeway Open, that being Cameron Champ. Cameron Champ, very long off the tee, very streaky with the putting. You're getting a very similar skill set here with Luke List. So if we take a look at his performance over the last few months, he's been very solid tee to green, gaining 0.42 shots gained off the tee per round, 0.35 shots gained approach per round, and 0.27 shots gained around the green. That's good enough to put him in the top 15 in terms of tee to green over that stretch. So it's $7,100, getting one of the best tee to green players in the world. You don't hate that at all. If you take a look at his putting stats on the bent POA, he's actually the least bad on bent POA. And I know it's a horrible way to say that. I know it's not necessarily a great way to paint a picture. But Patton Kizzire, Luke List is normally atrocious at putting, but he only loses 0.31 shots gained per round on it. So 0.11 better than his baseline. At the very least, that's a slight boost right there. The putting obviously hasn't been great of late. It's never really great. But if we take a look at when he's gained over 2 strokes putting in a round since June 1st, he's been able to do that 8 times. So he's had a few pop rounds. So, like I said, gets streaky from time to time. And all he really needs to do this weekend is put together 2 of those rounds. And the other 2 rounds, he can bleed all the strokes he wants as long as he's not losing 7 or 8 in the single round or anything like that. He could win this golf tournament. He has that kind of upside. He's one of the few players in the $7,000 or even $6,000 range that could very well win this tournament. So in GPP formats, that's exactly what I'm looking for. That kind of volatility, especially in this low 7K range. And finally, for our flyer, it's one of the Korn Ferry Tour standouts, and that's going to be David Lipsky. He's only $6,700, so there are some Korn Ferry Tour standouts a little bit more expensive. Some guys that are even cheaper, down towards the minimum price there. But we saw him on the PGA Tour before. We saw his immense potential this year at the Palmetto Championship with a very impressive top 5 finish. Again, that was his first PGA Tour start. So for him to go out and do that, again, hats off to him. Very, very, very impressive. We don't have much data on him, if at all. Obviously has been on the Korn Ferry Tour, and the data for the Korn Ferry Tour guys is kind of bare bones. You have to look very, very deep to try and find some trends. Silverado is a resort course, and this is going to look exactly what the Korn Ferry guys are used to. Week in and week out, they're not playing the most prestigious golf courses in America. They're still playing relatively nice country clubs, but it's going to look a lot like Silverado. Well maintained, not very long. Typically the winning score 20, even 25 under par. So for somebody like Lipsky's that's used to that kind of environment, coming in just having to make an absolute crap ton of birdies, I like that familiarity there. And he was not only a standout in his first PGA Tour start, but obviously among the elite of the elite all year long on the Korn Ferry Tour. Had multiple top 5s, top 10s throughout the entire year, and a relatively consistent player as well. Made a lot of cuts, didn't have a lot of miscuts over that last year. So at $6,700, you get a good amount amount of salary relief. Again, that's why he's a flyer player this week. You're also going to be unique. I doubt many people are going to go to these Korn Ferry Tour guys. They're going to use a wait and see approach. But we've seen some of them before. Lipsky we've seen on the PGA Tour before. We've seen John Augenstein on the PGA Tour before. Steven Yeager. There's a few others as well that we've seen on tour that we have data on. And my personal favorite to go to this week is definitely Lipsky. That's all I've got for my DraftKings picks, guys. Let me know in the comments who you think wins this year's Fortinet Championship, other than Jon Rahm. If you guys can guess the winner, if it's not Jon Rahm that ends up winning this week, you guys can receive a free month of my Patreon projection. So go ahead and put a guess down there. If I had to guess somebody other than Jon Rahm to win, it would personally be Cameron Tringale. But let me know what you guys think. If you guys want to check out the Patreon and get access to it right now, you don't want to wait to try to win it or anything like that. Link is going to be in the description like I mentioned before. Again, I give projections for all the players in every field for the PGA Tour, so all 156 this week. Also some ownership projections, whether they're in my player pool. I talked about the Discord as well, so it's only $1. Go ahead and check that out in the description. Thanks for watching. As always, I really do appreciate the viewership. If you guys haven't already, make sure to like and subscribe. Really helps me out with growing the channel and getting this out to even more people in the future. So tomorrow we're going to have my top 6 value plays dropping for the Fortinet Championship. Also keep an eye out for my ownership reaction video, which will be dropping later on in the week. And again, we have our live stream on Wednesday at 7 p.m. Eastern time. So make sure to stop by while you're building your lineups. Drop any questions you have in the chat about your lineups, about any strategy you want to employ for DFS, whether it's cash games, GPPs, you name it. That time is going to be yours on Wednesday. So again, at 7 p.m., we're going to be doing that. But until then, see you guys later, and good luck with any of your maybe Monday Night Football lineups you're putting in tonight.